Okay, there are ways to abuse statistics, and we may not really think about it, but companies do this a lot. And one way is that suppose that 1 million people nationwide were sent a survey. And the company comes back and says that 98% of the responses were favorable. But they did not tell you that only 50 responded. Well, part of that, the problem is that only 0.005% of those that were sent the survey actually responded. You have less than 1%, less than 0.5% of those that sent the survey responded. And then you're going to tell me that 98% of those were favorable. Okay, but what about the 99.995% that didn't even respond? So that's an issue. It does not represent the population. The reason why is because the return or the number responded is so low. I mean, you cannot make predictions based on less than 1% of a response. So this would not actually be a very good representation of the population. They would need to get more surveys responded. So in order to avoid statistics being misused, there are some things that you need to make sure that get reported to you or you can find so that you know that the information is valid, so that you don't just blindly follow the results. The first one is you need to know the questions being asked. And the reason why is because you have to be careful how you ask the questions. Some can be leading questions, and some are fair questions. There's one survey that I saw one time that said, did the drug cause your death? Well, think about that for a moment. If you're answering the survey, you didn't die. So that's not even an appropriate question unless somebody else is answering your survey, and if you answer yes, the company's probably going to throw that out because the person would be dead. Okay? So you need to know the questions that are being asked, how they're being asked. You need to know the number of people being surveyed. Just like in the previous example, they did tell us that there were 1 million people surveyed. Okay, and that's fine. And you also need to know the number of people that responded. Because you need to make sure that there is a large enough response to make this accurate. Now, each field of study chooses a different number for the appropriate percentage of responses, but I can definitely tell you it's more than 1%. Okay, most of the time it's going to be that you need about 15 to 20% of responses. Would be ideal, depending upon how many you sent out. You also want to know how the people chosen, or how the people who participated were chosen. For example, were they all in one area? Were they those that had mailboxes? Were they those that answered phones? Because I know I'm one that doesn't answer phones. So a lot of times that's not a very good representation. So you have to know how the people were chosen. You also need to know the number and types of treatments. Now, some things we're not necessarily looking at treatments, but if you're talking about a medication example or anything like that, was there only one treatment? Was there a placebo in a treatment? Was there 2 different medications in a placebo? That type of thing. You also want to know how the answers were interpreted. Were they interpreted by the pharmaceutical company? Were they interpreted by an individual company? Were they put in a database? That type of thing. All of these are ways for you to look deeper into how the study was actually done, to make sure that there's no bias involved.